Hey guys, John Loxley here. So Subnautica Below Zero was recently announced. And basically they're saying in the coming months, we will release an unfinished early version of Below Zero in early access. We will then begin releasing consistent content updates, carefully crafting the game based on your feedback, just like the original Subnautica. So this is kind of good, I guess. It worked for the first Subnautica, so I'm really hoping that designed by committee, which is basically what they're doing again, won't. I mean, it worked. It worked one time, so I'm hoping it'll work again. But this video is basically partial review of the original Subnautica, as well as some good points, some bad points, and suggestions that they can hopefully carry forward into Below Zero. Because honestly, I do want it to do well. I want it to be really good. So I have some stuff written down on a little sheet of paper. I don't know how loud that is, but it's an actual sheet of paper where I just kind of scribbled some bullet points, and I just want to go over those and kind of hopefully not ramble on too much, but I do tend to ramble just a little bit. So hopefully, either whatever. I mean, if this gets to the devs, great. If not, I wanted to get it out because I've just been thinking about it for a while. So probably one of the best things, I'll start with good first, just because that's kind of the order I have it written down in. Probably the best thing for me about Subnautica is the actual feeling of anxiety that I get typically while playing it. Not the whole time, but it does a really good job of setting the mood. I originally purchased Subnautica because it has kind of, because I have, I diagnosed myself with thalassophobia, the fear of what lies beneath. Just because seeing, water levels in games and stuff like that makes me a little bit nervous. And so I figured Subnautica would be a good way to overcome that. It kind of worked, not so much. I don't know. But the fact is, it does a really good job of establishing a an actual threat. It sounds weird to compare it to Five Nights at Freddy's, but it actually feels like you as the player are physically in danger during parts of the game. And it does it like how Silent Hill does as well, where it's not the Resident Evil does more like the jump scare thing, whereas Silent Hill builds up the tension over periods like a great horror game or movie should, and that's basically what Subnautica does. It uses the sound really, really well. You hear the roar of the Reaper Leviathan in the distance, and that just does a really good job. You have to restore the escape pod when you first start. It's a good little, I don't know, I just like it. It's like you crash land in the escape pod, and then it gives you a task. It doesn't give you the task as much as it's the only safety that you have, and so you want to make sure you repair it, because it is your only home, so to speak. Another really good thing is the creature variety and the attention to detail that was put into every little thing. Peepers, for example, their eyes close both at night and if you shine the flashlight on them. So if you go up to them and you actually shine the flashlight in their eye, even during the day, their eyes will close, or at least the eye that you can see. You can't obviously see both sides at once, but it's those little details which just make the world so much more vibrant. And it's pretty incredible, honestly. The breadcrumb exploration, or well, I call it breadcrumb exploration. That's another one of my most favorite things in the game, because they do kind of the Skyrim thing where it's like, here's your marker, of course, but they don't do that as in, this is your mission. It's basically like, oh, another pod landed here, you should go check it out. Because it's not like go here, then go here, then go here. You still need to go there and explore. It gives you a reason to explore the world. It gives you And not just a reason, it also gives you a marker, right? So you go there and you find the pod and you get a little reward, and that feels good because you're getting a reward. You usually get some kind of equipment or something, but then it introduces you to the new biome, and that new biome has extra materials and stuff. And so it lets you broaden your search without being forced, and it also gives you a little bit of structure, so you're not totally overwhelmed. Scanning, I really like. I know it sounds weird. I'm a big lore person, so I like scanning everything, and I like reading all that stuff. And they did a really good job talking about the attention to detail earlier. They did a really good job of doing those lore entries as well, or the scan entries. Let's be honest, there's still some typos and stuff they could fix, but whatever, that's fine. It's just good. It gives you a good thing, a good viewpoint of the world. It gives you a little bit of history. There's the exploitable stuff. It tells you what you can use to turn into food. You can turn the bladderfish into water. It tells you all that stuff. So if you read it, it basically gives you hints on how to survive and how to make the game a little bit easier for yourself. It tells you how to play, but it's through the mechanics of the game itself, because you as a survivor, you want to know what to do. You would be scanning everything and researching all the stuff to figure out what you can eat and what's safe and not safe. But what the scanning also does, I'm going to reference Metroid Prime, it makes it a collectible in that sense. So with Metroid Prime, you would scan the different Chozo glyphs and all that stuff, and the story itself was told through the scans, which made the story a collectible in Metroid Prime. In that same way, Subnautica does that. It conveys the story and the history of the world through the scans itself, and so that's key, because you can just play the game. You can just play the game and not scan, and if you don't care about the lore, it's still a perfectly good game. But if you're like me and you like all the lore and stuff, that's just an extra little bonus, because it's a collectible in a sense. So sound, music, and ambiance is another point that I have. The sound, the music, everything. They say that sound is about 70% of your experience. Even though Subnautica has really great visuals and everything is like super detailed in the world, it's just there's a little fish swimming around, and then the peeper's eyes closed and all that stuff. Apparently that's only 30% of how we process that world. And so the sound is a key point, and they really knocked it out of the park. The roar of the Reaper Leviathans, the what was it, the crab squid? How creepy that thing was. You could tell the creatures that were nearby just by listening, and they all had their own little sounds. The squeak of the peepers, the roar, or whatever noise the stalkers made. You would know that like a stalker was attacking you, and you could just swim in a different direction to avoid its attack. You didn't even have to really be paying attention. You didn't have to stop and turn around and be like, oh, there's a stalker coming after me. You could just move, and it would be fine. The Reaper Leviathan was the same way. Its roar would change when it saw you, and you knew, get out of there. Get out of there. I think Manny's coming this way. Here he comes. So the crafting was another thing that I thought was really good. What are you doing, Manny Cat? Crafting is semi-deep. It's not... It's simple without being cumbersome. It's, Manny, come here, you. Oh, sorry. Sorry, guys. Both cats want to be near me right now. No, the crafting was good. It was just complex enough to be fun, and just simple enough to not be cumbersome. It was a really good middle ground. Survival also in the same way. It was just complex enough. Like, it wasn't a chore, you know? It's like, oh, I need to eat, and there was food, and it required a little bit of work, so it felt like you actually... It wasn't easy. You know, it wasn't like something you threw away. You had to chase the fish down, or... You know... But it wasn't, like, super complex. It was like, oh, I need to find the fish. I need to find the water. This and this and that. The last point I have for the good stuff is no time limit. There was one time limit with the sunbeam landing, but that was the only thing that had an actual time limit. And even that was kind of... I mean, I get why they did it, but there was bugs associated with closing the game in the middle of that. Like, the timer wouldn't come back if you closed the game. So you didn't know what was happening or how much time you had left. And that's... But the fact that you didn't have a time limit, I think, is huge. Because you very easily could have. The infection could have progressed at a certain rate. And I don't know, I think it would have just been bad if all of a sudden it's like, oh, nope, you died because you took too long. Sorry, guys. Like, I think that would just kill the game. So it's really good they didn't have a time limit. Now, on to the bad. Let me take a sip of my coffee before we move on to this. Not as much bad stuff as you would think. I mean, the game itself is pretty decent. Fair amount of bugs, unfortunately, which... Unfortunately, I think the Unknown Worlds, from what I understand, they sort of have the reputation of not really fixing the bugs much once the game is released, and that's not good. And so a year later, almost a year at this point, Subnautica still has bugs. There's nothing, probably nothing that's going to be done about that. Maybe. I mean, I hope so. We'll see. But that goes along with most of these bad, which is Subnautica is poorly optimized. It is... There's pauses whenever you enter your base or enter the life pod or surfacing. It just doesn't seem to run. I don't know if that's due to loading, and I don't know. That's a programming thing that's not really my forte. But I feel like they definitely could make that better. Especially since the base is, I mean, it's already loaded. No matter where you are in the world, all the bases that you have built are loaded. So there should be no problem with the game pausing when you enter the base. That just seems, I don't know, it doesn't make sense to me. Same thing with the pop-in, or whatever you call it, draw distance, pop-in, whatever. You surface, and most of the time you're using the aurora as your landmark. And it's weird to see it all of a sudden just get cut off because you hit the draw distance, and all of a sudden half the aurora is just gone. And as you turn, it pops in and pops out, and that's just super immersion breaking. That is just not great. Similarly, when you're diving down or swimming around, and all of a sudden stuff just pops in, it's jarring. There is some fixes you can do. I did it in my playthrough where you can edit the graphics file to you increase the values of like the chunks, so that way it's displaying more stuff. It is a little bit harder on your processor. It requires more processing power, and it drops your frame rate, but it makes it smoother, way smoother overall. That's just, I don't, maybe it was like a thing to that they wanted to do to get it to work on laptops or lower the system requirements. I'm not quite sure. It's really bad on the lower quality settings, like really bad. When I first started playing the finished version, when they released back in February, somehow it had been set on low by default for the graphic settings, and I was just like, this looks freaking terrible. And then I was seeing other people play, and I'm like, oh wait. And I realized there was, I mean, I don't know why I didn't think to look at the settings, but there you go. So another thing that uses work, or could definitely use some polish, is the end game grind. So it's kind of a, I do love how you get to the end of games and they present you with challenges that you first had at the beginning, and they're super easy. And so it shows you how far you've come. I love that. This one, I think, kind of does that. So at the end of the game for Subnautica, you've done everything, and your goal is to build the rocket so you can escape. And it requires materials from everywhere. And it's just like another trip. It's like, oh, I just need to go get the materials. It's pretty easy, but it's time consuming. It really feels like a pointless, boring grind. It is. It really. It's like, honestly, it almost kills the game. It really just sucks all the momentum out of the end of the game. It's not great. And so I think, like, they tried, but they failed at making that, like, look how far you've come. That was not a good way to do it. I honestly don't know how they could have fixed that. I even feel like they sort of tried, because they give you, potentially, the plans to build the rocket about halfway through. And you don't have all the materials right away to build it. So you kind of build it in stages. Maybe give it to you earlier. I don't know. So that does go into the next point, which is the room. The mid-game point is where you first get the multi-purpose rooms, so you can start building your base. You don't know, or it's unclear that you can start building your base immediately. Like, when you first start the game, you have all the blueprints for, like, hallways and corridors and stuff like that. And you can actually start building your base then, and you can just you can build a hallway and put your storage lockers in it. Like, you don't actually need the rooms to start with. But I didn't know that. And some of my friends that play the game also, they didn't know that either. So you get to the midpoint of the game, and you still haven't built a base. You're living out of your life pod. Or you do like Christopher Odd, when I watched his playthrough. He built like 16 lockers, those little floating lockers. He built like a ton of those things, because you don't know. You just assume that, oh, I can't build a hallway by itself. You assume it's to connect two rooms. So it's not a great job on the part of the developers to convey that point. Or start with a multi-purpose room. Just start with one. Find the connectors. You know what I mean? Like maybe start it out where you can only build just one room, and that's it. I don't know. I feel like there's different options. Maybe make the midpoint where you get the rocket, and you have to start building it over the course of the game. I don't know. I mean, obviously we're in below zero. It's going to be different. It's not going to be the same thing. I assume you're not going to crash on the planet. It's supposed to be, I think it's set in the future. I don't know. But just, something going forward. Probably the biggest issue for the list of bad points that I have is the scanner room. It's unclear how it works. And that's, just a big issue overall, is that they have these things in the game and they're not conveyed properly. So you build the scanner room, inside the scanner room it has the little upgrade slots, and you assume that it can only take one of each. It doesn't tell you that, like, your range upgrades are stackable, for example. And then, even when you do have all the range upgrades and you can see the 3D map, it still can't necessarily scan all those areas because they're not loaded, you have to physically go into those areas and then go back and then activate the scanner, because it won't know that it can search for all the stuff in that area. And it just seems weird. And I don't know if maybe it's the Unity engine. I don't know, but I feel like as a programmer, there should be a way around that. And I know programming is a lot of, putting it together with bubblegum and shoestrings and tape. It's not, you just kind of shove it together and get it to work somehow. But I feel like maybe it's outside the Unity engine. I don't know, but I feel like there should be a way that you could do that. Bugs about falling through the walls and the floor is awful. Fighting a Reaper Leviathan in the prawn suit, and then the thing rams you and pushes you through the floor, or the earth, whatever, the ground, and then you just fall, and you keep falling until you die of thirst. That's bad. That's real bad. Yeah, what I did was I quit without saving, and I reloaded my save, but it had been however long, and just, you'll be on the Cyclops, and all of a sudden you'll just start sinking through the floor, and it's just weird. There's some real weird bugs. Censored content. Did you guys know Subnautica had censored content? I didn't. So it's not really a huge complaint, but they definitely did self-censor some things, where earlier builds you'd scan the crabs on the Aurora and it would make some note like their stomach contents contained human tissue or something along those lines. Like, it was not... It definitely contributed more to the horror atmosphere. Why they removed it, I'm not sure. That was something I wondered as I was playing the game, was like, where are all the bodies? Like, I don't need to see them. I just need to know that the people died. It's just... there was other stuff like the... was it the sea moth? An early build had you made sex jokes. You'd go in, and instead of saying "Welcome aboard, Captain," it would be like, "I love it when you come inside me." A bit risque. I don't know if the kids would pick up on that one. It might be like, adult humor in Disney movies. Like, kids are like, "Oh, okay," and then adults are like, "Whoa." But I get it. You want it to be G for everybody, so that's probably the reason they took that stuff out. It doesn't bother me. The Seamoth one I can understand. The body one scanning the crabs on the Aurora, that probably would have left, to be honest. Rotating and placing objects is not good either. When you're trying to build your base, I mentioned the crafting. Crafting and base building is just great. But you build like a desk or a shelf or something, and you go to place your little model on it, and that's the same button that switches between your quick selection bar, and the quick selection bar is not disabled while you're rotating the item. So you place your model Aurora and you want to rotate it, say 90 degrees, right? And then you rotate a little bit, and all of a sudden it switches to the next item in your quick bar, and you're like, okay, so you switch back, and then you rotate a little bit more, and then all of a sudden it switches. That seems like a pretty easy fix, I say, when I'm totally ignorant of programming, for the most part. But I feel like that should be a gimme, that shouldn't have been overlooked. Power capacity for your bases is another thing that I would put in the bad column, but not too big of a deal, I guess. I would like to have I don't know. So the power capacity is based off of the things that you build. it's like a local battery system for your individual power devices, right? So you build a solar panel, the energy is stored within the solar panel, not within the base itself. So, your solar panel only has an energy of 75. If you have a solar panel and a nuclear thing, nuclear is what, 2,500? So 2,575. You're like building the solar or the nuclear thing does not add extra capacity overall. Only the solar panel. Until you build the nuclear rods for your nuclear power, the max power you can have for your base is 75. That's it. If your bioreactor runs out of stuff, you're depending upon your other energy systems. It's not like a total aggregate for your whole base. Additionally, something that I would have wanted would have been like a priority system. You don't really know where it's pulling the power from first. So I would have preferred... It seems to go based on what you've built last, but sometimes it also seems like it's pulling from solar power first, then your bioreactor, or maybe both are equally given priority, and nuclear power last. I don't know how that works. It would have been nice to just be like, yes, prioritize taking the power from the solar power first, then nuclear power or bioreactor last, or something. I don't know. Or just have a battery upgrade for your base. I'm just kind of rambling, but I don't know. There's ways to do it. Also, you can't drag and drop batteries within your inventory to reload, like your scanner or your stasis rifle, stuff like that. You can't grab a battery in your you can't grab a battery in your inventory, drag it onto your stasis rifle, and just let go and have it just swap the batteries. You have to physically equip your stasis rifle, hit R, select the correct battery, click, and then it'll swap. It's cumbersome. You have a whole button just for reloading. Oh, whoa, Jack. Jack just fell off the chair. Almost. Okay. He's okay, though. Let's see. Thermal facility location. That is awkward. I assume, I don't remember exactly what I was thinking about when I wrote this one down, but I think it's where you place your thermal plant. It's always touchy. It's green in some areas and red, a millimeter to the left and the right. It doesn't make any sense. Also, you don't know. I think it was supposed to tell you like how much power it would do or how much power it would produce based on the color when you were placing it, but that doesn't seem to actually work. I don't know. So just fix that, I guess. That's my bad section. Wow, we've been going for almost 30 minutes. That's pretty crazy. Okay, suggestion side. Now we're more onto the below zero stuff. So these are suggestions that you can either take or leave. I mean, I'm not going to say I'm totally right. This is obviously my personal opinion, but if you agree with me, that's fine. I do want to hear your guys' comments also. I'd be curious. So, yeah, suggestions might be a little bit weird. The first one, Jack's sitting next to the mouse again. The first one for suggestions for below zero is just please keep politics or your agenda pushing out. I mean, this is my big thing. I'm really kind of sick of politics being shoved into stuff. It's a video game. It's for fun. If you want to do it like Kevin Smith does, where there goes Manny launching himself across the room. One of the evenings with Kevin Smith, he talked about how his brother, is gay and doesn't get any representation in movies and stuff. and he said, I think he had said he tried making it more overt at one point, and it was just it didn't work. And so you just throw a little bit of whatever in there, and that's how you get it in there. You just a little hint. You don't want to hit people over the head with your message and stuff. I mean, I don't. If you have a political opinion, that's fine, but shoving it in there awkwardly. I think the issue is not necessarily politics in video games or whatever, but just it's the hackneyed. Usually, the people that are trying to force stuff in there are forcing it in there. It's not. It doesn't fit. It's poorly written. It's just bad. Just do it well or don't do it at all. That's my thing. Hopefully this paper is not too loud. I'm trying to... Oh, right. So, the character, right? This is actually... So I have to touch on this again because a lot of the reason Subnautica got a lot of shit when it was first released. It was huge, it became super popular, and then people just started ragging on it because of the politics that were forced into it. The one of the big agendas that it seems like the devs were trying to push was diversity. And so there's a whole meme that came out of it, and not a good one. And look, if you're, like, to the point, they did a poll. The devs did a poll where it's like, hey, do you want a black main character, or do you want to fix core problems and bugs in the main game? And they were shocked that, like, 85% of the people were like, fix the game. Like, that... just don't. Just don't. Look, in Below Zero, the main character is going to be, I think, a black woman. If you want real diversity, if that's one of your big agendas, make a character selector. Let us pick what we want to be. Don't try and force your politics onto people. Just, throw it out there and let people choose. I don't know. That's my uneducated opinion. So another suggestion, creature AI. And I made some notes, but I don't really know what they mean. I think I wrote, like, creatures ambush. That I do remember. So during the trailer, or the cinematic trailer, there was, you see the little guy, was it Bart from the Degassi? You see him swimming along and showing a bunch of different biomes and stuff, and then there's a crab squid, which looks a lot like the anchorpods. It's clearly designed that way. But the AI for those things was not super great. So it basically, in the trailer, it ambushes him. It looks exactly like an anchorpod. He swims by, and then it comes out and sort of attacks. I'd like to see that. That sounds amazing. It's also terrifying, but I want to see that. If that's possible. That might be too complicated. I don't know. I have no idea. Make attractors, light, and sound more visible by changes in creature behavior. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, like the Reaper Leviathan, when it sees you, it changes its behavior immediately because it rushes straight at you. The other ones, they basically come after you as well, but I don't know, it doesn't, like, even the light and the sound and stuff, like, it doesn't seem to do a whole lot. I don't know. The crab squid, they just attack you. If they see a light source when you're in the Degassi habitat, they'll just shoot the little EMP thing, but I think that might be because they can't reach you. I don't know, it just doesn't feel... I mean, that's creepy, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't feel super genuine. Like, their script kind of peeks out a little bit. I'd like to see maybe some different attractors. You know, you talk about in the original Subnautica, light being one of them. But there's other ones you can do. There's sound, there's motion, you know, like the T-Rex in Jurassic Park. There's maybe the smell of blood if you're injured. Maybe that attracts certain people, like if your health isn't all the way up. Maybe even repulsors. You have things that could potentially attract creatures, but maybe add some things that revolt them. Like what was it? In the original there was like those rattler things, like the little plants on the on one of the islands. You could have maybe if you have one of those in your inventory, certain creatures won't attack you. Something like that. Just different just develop the creature AI a bit more, not just aggressive or idle, so to speak. You know, they swim around. They do attack each other. I gotta give you props for that one. They attack each other, but it's I'd like to see that developed a little bit more. I also want to see different strategies for dealing with creatures. You know, kind of like I mentioned, some things light, some things motion, whatever. I guess we'll see. Oh, there's some people talking outside my door. This is one suggestion. I'm not totally sure of difficulty settings. I just wrote it down because some of these are interesting ideas, I think. They might not be good. They might not make the gameplay fun. But, you know, I put them down as potentially interesting. Maybe they'd make the game better, maybe not. Regardless, difficulty settings might be an option. So, something that I really liked about Don't Starve is that you can kind of create your own world. You know, you can have more or less of different types of food, more or less of different types of creatures, random events, stuff like that. You could do something like that as well. It would enhance the replayability value. So you could have more or less food or creatures. Maybe the creatures cover a wider area. Typically, they kind of stay where they're at in Subnautica. Maybe they'd start ranging more. Maybe they'd cover the whole map. Maybe they'd just be more aggressive. I don't know. Those are different options. You could either have like a difficulty setting, or you could have them individually set like a custom settings. I don't know. I wrote New Game Plus. Like, that could potentially be an option. And, you know, you don't necessarily have to have like a Dark Souls 2 where it adds extra stuff, although maybe that's an option. You know, starting location, that could be a difficulty setting as well. Do you want to start in the safe shallows? Do you want to start in the dunes or the Grand Reef? You know, so the original Subnautica was shaped kind of like a bullseye. You start in the center and there's a few rings around it, and the farther out you go, the more difficult it becomes. You could start in different areas farther out. Potentially. I don't know how Below Zero is going to be set up. Potentially you could have, you know, bigger or smaller biomes. I know Don't Starve has kind of a... how they do their world generation is... it's procedural, whereas I know Subnautica is not. Subnautica is a, you know, specifically designed map. So that's something. Multiple maps is an option as well. You know, if you don't want to go the procedural maps route, which I think you could still do, to be honest. And not in the original Subnautica because of the story. But I think you could do either procedural maps or multiple maps. You could just craft a few different maps if you don't want to do the procedural route. And then the other potential difficulty setting is destroyable bases. Although they can kind of clip through the walls already, so I don't know, you'd have to get that fixed first. One of my big suggestions, scanner for the time capsules. Maybe have that be a New Game Plus feature. you know, or unlocked when you finally beat the game. I just want to find these things. I mean, there's so many of them out there, and from what I understand, the original Subnautica, they appear every 2 to 3 hours of gameplay. And I don't know how it determines where they are. Supposedly they show up near where people launch. I don't know. I would definitely like to see a time capsule scanner, or possibly notifications, like with the life pod stuff. I want to, people are creative. I want to see what they do for their time capsules. I mean, seriously, that's one of the best things. Even if you don't need it, even you could even do the time capsules as a New Game Plus thing. Or I don't know. I just want to see more of them, because it seems like such a, I don't know. I just want to see more of them. Let's put it that way. Let me get another sip of coffee. I'm kind of a little bit raspy, which is why I should totally drink coffee. That's sarcasm. So, a weird idea for Below Zero is like a turtle sea moth. I know they've talked about possible temperature thing as one of the little meters, I guess. So in Subnautica you have, health, food, water, oxygen. They've talked about temperature as well. Like, are you too cold? Are you not? I'm not sure. But a turtle sea moth, if they're going to implement something like that, could be pretty interesting. Like, it blocks the cold, but it's slow and armored. More of a tactical thing might be interesting. I don't know if it'd be fun, but it might be interesting to have a, something slow that, like, if some creatures, like reapers or whatever, are attracted to motion, maybe this thing just, it's super slow, but it won't be noticed by them for whatever reason. Jack, what are you doing? You want to rest your head on the mouse? That's fine. Yeah, it might be interesting. It might be terrible. It might be a terrible idea, but I don't know. I was just kind of brainstorming, so who knows? Another thing I do want to see is some kind of a collectible checklist. And possibly even, like, a tab in your PDA that's like the different biomes that you encounter. You first go into a new biome and it creates a new entry about the biome itself, and as you scan stuff, creatures or minerals within that biome, it fills them in like a little scorecard or check sheet, and it can tell you more about it. And then once you complete all of them or scan everything, it'll be like, hey, here's some info about the biome itself. Something that would also be good is with that, if it could tell you how many of the large wrecks or the small wrecks were in there, or even the PDAs. Like, you go into I've played through the game 5 or 6 times, and occasionally I still find stuff that I haven't found before, just because I'm like, let me look at the map. Oh, I never went into the dunes. There's a wreck out there. Let me go out there, and you find a PDA, something about, I don't know, profit strategies for the Altera Corporation, something like that. It would be nice to know if you've missed anything. I like to do 100% of stuff, and that, I think, would be a neat little thing to have. Also, potentially something to unlock in New Game Plus, if that's something you wanted to do. As far as the New Game Plus thing goes, if you're going to implement that, I don't like how they just make things more difficult. I like extra stuff or new stuff. Not just enemies have more health, but enemies maybe have a little more health, but there's also more enemies, or the enemies have different AI or something. I mean, it's, I'm throwing all these out there. Pick and choose what you want. Easy enough. Prawn. When I first got the prawn suit in Subnautica, I really thought you could have 4 arms equipped. I don't know why. It just makes sense to me. So one one of my suggestions is make a prawn suit with 4 arms, I guess. You could even cycle through them, or I don't know, just you could do something. If not, that's, I mean, whatever. These are all suggestions. Last suggestion, we're pretty much done. Base markers and better feedback while base building. So base markers, the way that you know where your bases are now is you either take a beacon and you shove it next to one of your bases, or you build a scanner room and use the little scanner cameras as your map markers, essentially. Both of those are fine. It would be nice if you could actually have, a room or something that you build in your base that puts it on your map, or something, or just building it creates it. I don't know. Same thing with the base building. It's either red or green. It's either good or it's not good. When it's bad, you don't know why. You don't know if it just can't connect there. You don't know if something's in the way. I'd like a little bit more feedback on that. I feel like it would be important. So that way I can know why my base doesn't want to attach. You're building a moon pool, and part of your moon pool is going to stick through a wall or something like that. And you could have maybe the whole thing yellow instead of red or green, and then that section that's, clipping through something else, have that be red so that you can be like, oh, I see now. I know now why I can't build this moon pool. It's just a little bit of just polish. Just polish things. It's fine. Subnautica, seriously, one of my favorite games ever. I'm looking forward to Below Zero. I think that'll probably be, it's, I'll probably purchase it day one and then play it, but it won't be finished. I'll probably play it first for a little bit and then just leave it alone until it gets released, because I don't want to be spoiled. I don't want to get the stuff spoiled. So I don't know, we'll see. Like I said, I'm looking forward to it. But that's it for today, guys. That was my, good, bad, and suggestions for Subnautica Below Zero. I'd like to know what you guys think. Hear your thoughts. Good, bad, indifferent, whatever, let me know. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, I'm looking at the timer right now. It's almost 50 minutes. I didn't mean to talk for that long, but if you made it all the way to the end of the video, thank you. Seriously. You guys are awesome. That's it for today. Hope to see you guys next time. Till then, guys, take care. Check, I need to get to the... I can't turn this off. I can't turn it off because Jack's on the mouse. Oh, Jack. Oh, okay. I'm almost there. I'm moving the mouse like a millimeter at a time. Oh, there we go. Okay.